Hello, word nerds. Welcome to another episode of the Dictionary. Yet again, we have a guest. I know it's not incredibly often, but ooh, it's so good when it happens. We have a very special guest today. I would like to say the first time that I learned about our guest, Christophe. Oh, I should say your last name. I believe you said it's Polish. Is it Zajac-Denek?
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Yes. Okay. Christophe Zajac-Denek. How you doing?
I'm excellent. It's like you're a pronunciation master.
Hey, I learned a lot reading through the dictionary. Can you write it out phonetically for me? Actually, your last name practically is spelled phonetically, isn't it? It's close.
It's a sigh of relief anytime I tell anyone when they look at my name and they're like, because Christophe just throws them, they're blasted around the corner when they see Christophe and they're like, I don't know if I should attempt any more of his
Right.
name. And then I say it's Zajac-Denek and they're like, oh,
That's not that bad.
that's not that bad. Okay. Yeah.
Is that the actual pronunciation, or is that more of like the Americanized pronunciation?
I believe it's the Americanized pronunciation. I don't know the original pronunciation of Denek, but Zajac apparently is Zions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a difference for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so it's Polish and Ukrainian. I don't really necessarily know how the mix shakes out, but Zajac apparently means bunny rabbit in Polish, I think. Wow. Or Zions does.
Yeah, right. Not Zajac means nothing over there.
Zajac means nothing. It's if I were to go there, they'd be like, your name is impossible. Zajac, we can't say that.
Right. Well, thank you to whoever your ancestors were who changed it to a more American pronunciation. I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, as I was saying, I would like to say the first time that I was aware of you was from Twin Peaks Season 3, The Return, when you played Ike the Spike, just so amazingly that you must have had so much fun in that role.
I had so much fun. Yeah, thank you for the kind words, Spencer. That's amazing. That's super cool.
We will talk more about that, but when I actually first learned about you, my wife and I were watching a dating show.
Oh God, this is like my nightmare, man.
I know,
when
right?
Twin Peaks came out, that dating show came out too, and I was so excited to get recognized for Twin Peaks, and I got more recognition from the dating show than I did from Twin Peaks, and I was like, oh, that's the one I care less about than Twin Peaks.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll just quickly say we actually watched it because we know somebody who was on that show, a different episode than yours. And
okay, I was going to say, was it the woman that I went out on a date with?
No. No, we knew somebody else, and then so we just kept on watching the other episodes, and we saw yours, and then not that long after that, we watched Twin Peaks, and my wife was like, I think that's the same guy. Like, yep, for sure it is. Well, anyway, Twin Peaks is way more important to us than that little dating show.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
Oh, we have to talk about all of the other things that you do in life. You are an actor, clearly. You are a drummer. You are is it professional surfer or near professional surfer?
I've won money, so I guess it's professional. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's God, I'm from Michigan, man. To call me a professional surfer is like my life's, like I've achieved everything I need to achieve in this world,
Right. You're good, but it just keeps on getting better, right?
Life is incredible.
Yeah. So what else do you do?
I live in Los Angeles, so you kind of have to do everything. So I host and produce a podcast called I'm Kind of a Big Deal, which, because I've been an actor and in entertainment pretty much my entire career, I've realized and also gotten tired of little people just being put into roles that trivialize our existence. And so the goal of my podcast and the reason why I started it was to highlight and showcase these exceptional lives of little people that oftentimes are overlooked and underappreciated, and really try and give some human elements to these people's lives that, so many folks will just go on forever and never get to understand. So that's really my goal with the show. And it's an interview based show. And I just have folks on and we talk about all these different experiences and their different lives.
Yeah, it's really a fantastic show. I listened to, I think it was the last interview, and then there's a bunch of like sort of clip episodes after that. Which,
Yeah.
if you're going to listen to anything, if you're only going to listen to a little bit, listen to those, because you get
I love those.
some really, really great nuggets of information from everybody.
I'm so happy. I didn't know how those were going to come out when I thought them up, and I just I had compiled all these questions, just to kind of see.
Great questions, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah. Honestly, I've never been asked those questions personally of anybody. No one is. And a lot of times when I ask the questions that are on those episodes, my guests say, no one's ever asked. And you can kind of hear it. Some of them are like, I'm mad at you because I don't know how to answer this. I've never had to answer this before.
Yeah. There were a couple. Well, the full interview episode that I listened to was Alexa. I think that's her name. And that spoke so perfectly to what you were saying about why you wanted to do the podcast in the first place, was because she was the first, if I have this correct, she was the first person with dwarfism to be in a commercial who wasn't playing a leprechaun or some sort of other non-human person. She was just herself, and that was it.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, exactly. And I'm welcome to anyone saying, no, this wasn't, like, proving me wrong. But I mean, all of my friends in the industry, I'm going by, folks who've been in the industry for 30 years and stuff that I've gotten offered and called on, and that stuff that I've worked, it's never been outside of a costume. My face has never been seen on a commercial. I've never been in a ton of makeup on a commercial. And so many of my other friends are like, they've been mini cowboys or like jokey office people that, are at like a mini desk and stuff. It's never just someone who's around and just working. And so for her to have that role, I thought that was, it's a landmark. It's very sad that it's in 2020 was the first time, but it's a landmark role for us in our community. So yeah, I really wanted to showcase that.
Yeah, that was very important, I thought, and clearly the world is changing. It's slowly but surely getting a bit better in that way for all types of communities, for sure.
So it is, and it's exciting that this is happening. I also like kudos that these spots are being shot and these folks are being seen and being cast. Alexa is from Canada, and the spot shot in Canada, and she actually booked another spot that shot in Canada. And so I'm wondering, are these spots just like making Hollywood look better, or is Hollywood actually doing better? Because these weren't shot in LA or New York, and I still get called for stuff that is an elf or a leprechaun that's based out of creative agencies in LA and New York. So you really kind of have to read the label on some of these things and see like, okay, cool. It's great that she was in an Amazon commercial or a PetSmart commercial, but where did these creatives come from?
Right. Yeah. Canada seems to be a little bit ahead of America in certain ways.
A little bit more accepting in some of these regards. So
yeah.
I mean, a step is a step, right? Let's keep walking. Let's keep making steps. So I appreciate it. But yeah, I do the podcast, and then I also engineer some audio sessions for producers that live all over the world. And I do a little bit of video editing here and there. It's LA, man. You gotta wherever you can find money, you have to be able to find the money.
Jack of all trades, for sure.
Honestly. Yeah, for sure. If I could just surf for the rest of my life, that would be
amazing. How did you get into surfing?
I've been obsessed with it since I was 14. My mom would go, we would go as a family to Florida for Easter break, and I would just wander into surf shops in Florida and see posters. And I was obsessed with skateboarding in Michigan, but you can only skateboard for like 4 months out of the year with all the snow and the terrible weather. And you can't surf in Michigan, but I just thought it was so cool. And I loved that surf and skate culture were meshed.
Yeah.
And so when I got a skateboarding magazine, I'd see, crossover advertisements and messaging for surfers. And I've always loved the water. In Michigan, we have the Great Lakes. And when I was 15 or so, I think we went to Orlando and then to Cocoa Beach, and I tried surfing for the first time and it was the worst experience, but I was just so hooked. It was so cool to be out in the ocean on a surfboard and thinking that I looked like any of those posters that were in the surf shops.
Yeah, I tried surfing once. I was in Hawaii with some people, and I think we rented like 1 or 2 boards for like 5 people, and we tried and failed miserably. And there was like the coral was so sharp underneath. It was not a fun experience.
Hawaii, I mean, unless you go to a pretty easy spot, and I mean, if you get lessons, but you know, the ocean doesn't care. You know what I mean? Like the ocean owes you nothing, and it's just gonna be there and, you know, doing its thing. And I think that's one thing I love so much about it is it's such a challenge, and it's almost like a puzzle that you have to put together. And that's just how I'm attracted to those things.
Yeah, you do have to respect the water for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've had my ass handed to me many times.
Yeah, there was another time in Hawaii, unrelated to surfing. I just went in the water to play in the waves and very easily could have died. I'm actually kind of shocked that I didn't. I was held under for a while. We don't need to talk about that.
I mean, it's good to know. Be safe out there.
Yes,
people.
please go with a buddy at the very least, and don't go into dumb situations like I did.
Excellent advice.
We do. Oh, you're drumming. Do you play in a band by yourself, freelance? Where can we listen to your drumming?
Sure. So I used to make a living as a drummer, and I stopped doing that so much, and I started to play in bands in LA just for fun, just because I love drumming. Man, where can you listen to me? That's tough. There's a band that I played in from Detroit called Bermuda Mohawk that I absolutely loved, and they're amazing songwriters. And then in LA, I had another band called Royal Young, and that band was super fun and with some friends. And then I toured with another band a while back that I think many people have never heard of. So, but yeah, it's that's a tough one because I played for a long time at churches and one-off, you know, cover nights and stuff like that. And the touring thing, I never really made a living, which is one of the reasons why I ended up moving on from that. But drumming is just it's a passion, and I'm sorry that I don't really have great places to send people to check out music.
You mentioned a couple bands, so you know we can go to Spotify, YouTube. There's places for sure. I'm sure we can find them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's if you dig, you'll find stuff.
All right, I might dig a little bit then. Yeah, because I want to hear. And okay, yes, we obviously have to talk about Twin Peaks a bit.
Let's talk about Twin Peaks.
How the hell did you get that job?
Honestly, it's such a crazy thing. It wasn't through my agent. It wasn't through a normal casting situation. It was through like a secondary casting or something like that. And it was all coded. I had no idea what it was. I had no clue what I was signing up for.
Super secretive over there in Twin Peaks world.
When I booked the role, I didn't know what it was. Like I kind of tricked the casting guy into telling me that it was, because he wouldn't tell me. He's like, oh, you know, it's a code name. Like, go look it up yourself. I think it was Rancho Rosa. He's like, do your own research. I'm like, it's 10:30 at night. Can't you just tell me like what I'm doing tomorrow? Like, what? And yeah, so I found out it was interesting because I have a couple friends that I'd worked on productions 8 years prior, something like that. They were booked on Twin Peaks in the costume department, and they had heard that I was coming on. And so they texted me like, shh, hush, hush, you know, we'll see you tomorrow though. And I was so excited. And that was the coolest thing is I got to set and I saw Nancy and I saw Jen, my friends that I met on Paul. I worked, you know, many years before, and Nancy put me in the Ike costume, sat in the van with me as we drove to set, and then she took my hand and walked me over to David Lynch. And David saw me and he goes, Ike. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is out of this world, man. And I mean, I didn't have any information beforehand. I got a redacted script. I got like 8 pages. I honestly thought I was going to go and work a background role, and I had to call production and say like, why did I get a script? And they said, oh, you're this character. And I'm like, okay.
With
cool.
a name.
With a name and a couple like an action and stuff. So it was all just this very unique situation. Yeah. Never had an experience like that before.
Were you a fan of Twin Peaks beforehand?
So I was a fan of David Lynch and movies, but I had actually never watched Twin Peaks before I booked the show. And when I booked it, I had a weekend. So I booked it on a Friday, and so I was working on Tuesday or something like that. And it's funny, like 3 weeks before I booked the show, I was like, I've never watched Twin Peaks. I should watch Twin Peaks. I didn't even know that this was happening. Even funnier, 6 months before I booked Twin Peaks, I was hired to be in a student project as the man in the red room.
Oh, wow.
And so I shot that scene before, like all these things were like pointing. And another funny situation, I booked Twin Peaks. I think I had worked 1 or 2 days, and then I went to band rehearsal with a friend of mine, John, and we were just jamming and stuff. And he's like, oh, do you want to play tomorrow? Like, what are you doing? Like, I'd love to jam again. And I was like, actually, I'm booked on a thing. I can't do it. And he's like, oh, what are you booked on? And I'm like, I can't say because I'll get in all sorts of trouble. And the first words out of his mouth were, are you booked on Twin Peaks?
Oh my God.
And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Wink.
My face probably went white. I'm like, how did he guess that? I never talk about this stuff, So crazy.
Yeah, he must have been. I mean, the fans knew that there was stuff going on, so yeah, he was probably keyed into that and just took a stab in the dark.
Honestly, yes, yeah, well, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Or I'm just an easy tell, I guess. Like, and I can't work tomorrow. Oh, you're on Twin Peaks. I didn't say that. I never said that.
He can read your mind.
I
well,
know.
you had some interesting makeup or teeth in there, right?
I had some, I guess, meth teeth. Yeah, like so I booked it on Friday, and the costume, key costumer, or special effects makeup key, she called me, kind of in a haste on Friday night, and she said, hey, can you please come in tomorrow morning and we'll do your fitting for teeth? And I was like, that was the first thing where I was like, this character is getting teeth. That's not just a regular thing.
Yeah.
And so I went the next morning and had my teeth fitted, and I was like, okay, there's something going on here.
Yeah, this is serious.
Yeah. Well,
I could definitely talk about Twin Peaks all day because, it's Twin Peaks, and my wife was a huge fan before I was, and we go to Twin Peaks land every once in a while. We're actually going again in a couple of weeks outside of Seattle. But yeah, I'm
awesome.
Your role is so insane and fun. Like what did you even think about that role? You're from a normal human being playing that type of character who's just like bonkers crazy murderer.
So yeah, I mean, what an opportunity, right? Like getting to play a serial killer who actually murders someone on screen, but then getting to do it for David Lynch. I'm so honored. I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and truly it's just such an incredible opportunity to get to play this role. And then with David Lynch, incredible for me. I didn't know like what, I mean, cause there's so many different layers there, and to be truthful, I'm not pulling any punches. I didn't go to school to be an actor, like I'm not someone that sits down and, at least at that point, would look at a script and say like, oh, motivation, this and that,
right,
and all these things. that's not what I'm trained as, and I'll be the first to admit that. I do know how to improvise in the moment. I do feel like I'm a strong improviser, and I do feel like I can go in and adapt to a moment and give my all for that. And honestly, that's really where I drew from. Like, so many times when I was touring in the band, we would have to call audibles on stage in front of 4,000 people, 15,000 people, whatever, and it's like, there's this pressure where you have to perform and you have to make something that works in the moment. And I guess that's really what I tapped into. I was like, I've been in this before. I'm calm. This is going to be a really physical and violent moment, and I can just pull from that. And I also think I know I have a weird personality, and so like I don't know. I think I maybe tapped into that as well for when, he has the tender moment about ruining his spike.
Right.
Yeah, I get that, I get what the artistic vision of that is. And at least I hope I did anyway. I think like that all worked with, however David Lynch saw that like I could do this. I don't know, but I felt like I could do it,
You nailed it. You spiked it and nailed it for sure.
That's very kind. Thank you, Spencer.
We're going to do a whole Twin Peaks watch at some point soon. And so, I'm
cool.
looking forward to seeing those scenes again.
Thanks, man. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you.
Was there, when you were hired or when you were on set, to tie this back around to the whole reason that you're here, was there talk about specifically having a little person in that role that you're aware of, I should say?
Not to me. I remember the breakdown mentioned something about short and stocky or something like that. So I think there was, a physical element that they were looking for. And so I'm sure that had something to do with it. But it really wasn't, to my knowledge anyway. I don't know. I don't think he was saying, "Oh, I want a little person." I know on my audition, I had to exhibit some physicality and things that I could do. But I mean, stuff was not really discussed at all. It wasn't, it was like, I don't know, maybe it was in my eyes. Like I could do that. I don't know.
Yeah. But, well, it's even better that way. I mean, we know David Lynch tends to like things that are physically a bit different, like you said, The Man from Another Place in The Red Room. I know he's used that actor many times. I'm Carol Struycken, who plays the giant in Twin Peaks. He's also a fan favorite of David Lynch. And so, I know that he leans in that direction. He did The Elephant Man, so I think he has a real affinity to the different. I know I do too. And part of that, I think, for him is to let's put these people in the spotlight and let them shine like they should be, instead of being these quote unquote circus freaks, which is sad. Absolutely. That's been our history. But yeah,
I think maybe this can be also what he sees. Like, I think maybe he recognizes that people who have these differences have a different element of depth in their experience in society and their approach to whatever the acting condition is, or whatever the scene narrative is. And I think that, to me, is I highly respect that. I think that's what I'm going for, in my whole mission on, the rest of my life. Like this, I want to embrace that and highlight that for people so that they see that, being disabled, being different offers up so many more opportunities, I will argue, for creative problem solving, for ways to interact with people, to get to know people better than just, on a surface level, and to really share vulnerably, which I think all of those things are very important in acting, and I think maybe that consciously or unconsciously, maybe David Lynch sees that and maybe that's why he's drawn to it. I don't know. Just two cents off the top of my head, but
makes sense to me for sure.
Yeah.
And what you said, there was something you said, having sort of a different perspective on life and having gone through something different than like somebody like me hasn't been through. I believe that was very specifically mentioned in one of those clip episodes of your podcast. I don't remember, but I think the episode of that section that really, really spoke to me was the one of the question, what does dwarfism mean to you? And every single person, especially the first person, I don't remember who it was, but especially the first person, but all of them had such amazing answers that they just really struck a chord with me, because like this is the big question, like what does this mean to you? This thing that you've only known your whole life.
Yeah.
And I just loved everybody's answers on that one.
Thank you, man. I have to say I did too. I really just, I've learned so much from my guests, man. I've lived in this body for 43 years. I have learned so much about dwarfism and having confidence and learning what it is to work through all these difficult things in your life, whether you want to accept that they're difficult or push them down and say that, well, they're just, that's just how it is. I've just learned so much, and I'm so grateful to my guests who've come on and shared with me, because I've learned a ton, and I really think if you approach it like as you have, and you have an open mind and you think about these situations, I think there's a lot to learn for everyone. So I really appreciate you checking it out, man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there is a lot to appreciate there. Have you stopped doing the podcast, or is it on hiatus? I feel like I haven't. 2021 was the last episode.
Yeah. I kindly for myself say that I'm on hiatus.
Yeah.
But it's been like a 2-year hiatus, so come on. The podcast is, I don't have to tell you. Everybody else out there, podcasts are hard, man. Yeah. Like Spencer's doing a show for you every day. Like, come on. This is it's so much work. It's so much work. And I do edit a lot, and I do a lot of pre-interview work and stuff. And it's when you're not making a living at it, or you're not, using it to pay your bills, and you have to kind of shift your
priorities,
your priorities and your availability and stuff. It's a lot. So, and I'm doing it myself. You do yours yourself too,
yeah,
right?
I do. And I actually had another podcast, which almost exact same timing. I started it in 2020, and I think it ran for about a year or so, 2021. And I went on a hiatus, and I haven't gone back. And I really, really, really want to go back, but I just don't have enough time. So
I think it's hard too. And I hate to be like this, but I think it's hard when, like, the podcast world is so saturated now, but it's saturated with all these celebrity podcasts.
Yeah.
And I think for people like us who have this platform where we're just being creative and we're kind of, doing it in a grassroots way, like when you're up against, the Office podcast that everybody wants, like you're vying for all these people's 30-minute blocks or 45-minute blocks or whatever. It's really tough to break in,
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Yep. No, and I feel you, man. It's and that's it. It sucks, but that's part of why I'm discouraged from doing it. I have interviews recorded with lovely interviews recorded, but I also don't want to put out a partial season. So.
Yep. You'll find the time. Life is in cycles.
Exactly.
Well, since we're talking about podcasting, what's the whole point of this podcast? I guess we're here to talk about some words. No, I'm really glad that we just spent like the last half hour talking about that stuff, because I was curious. I wanted to know all this stuff about you. So I've been following you on Instagram ever since Twin Peaks.
Oh, amazing. I'm thanks, man. I'm supremely terrible on social media, and I'm pushing myself. It doesn't look like it at all, but I am pushing myself to get better. So,
well, you got
thanks,
a lot
Spencer.
going on.
And thanks for asking like really thoughtful and great questions.
Well, I'm curious about people, so that's where it comes from.
Awesome.
I'm also curious about these words. I do
Excellent
believe
segue.
I sent you the photo. You don't have to have it up and follow along, but if you want to, that's totally fine.
Cool.
The first word in this episode is DVD. I am recording this so out of order. I mean, I'm like this is like 3 months ahead of where I'm supposed to be, but that's okay. So I like haven't recorded any of like the DRDU words, none of that stuff. I'm coming into this so blind. All right, DVD, all caps. It's spelled DVD. Noun from 1993. So you and I are almost exactly the same age. I'm closer to 43 than I ever have been. And so this is a this is a prime word for both you and me, I think. It is a high capacity optical disc format. Also, an optical disc using such a format and containing especially a video recording like a movie or computer data. Do you have memories of when movies first came out on DVD?
I do, yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember going to Blockbuster or Family Video in Shelby Township, Michigan, and there were fewer VHS tapes on the shelves, and then there were DVDs taking up the spaces where the VHS tapes were. And yeah, definitely. I mean, 93?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't remember them from 93, more like 97-ish for me.
Yeah, definitely. We did not have a DVD player right away.
Yeah.
And I definitely did not purchase DVDs right away. I was never a movie buyer. I never bought, and my family is like, my mom and dad are the last folks interested in any type of, like pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not grow up with a pop culture knowledge. Like, it was classical music in my house and candlelit dinners. And
nice.
I mean, and we go like watch a movie, if there would be there. My dad used to have, sorry for the tangents. My dad used to get reel to reel movies from the country, like movies rental store. And he'd like put the cassette in and like string up the reel to reel and put up the
8
projector.
or 16 millimeter.
Yeah.
That we had that when we were little, but I don't think we ever rented movie on reel to reel. So yeah, you got, your parents were they were holding on to that for a long time.
My dad was holding on to that for sure.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I remember DVDs, definitely. I mean, I was big into CDs, 1994 is one of the best years for music, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like in my generation, it's like so many amazing records came out in 94. DVDs came out in 94. Or CDs, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, DVDs. I was working at a Blockbuster, I think in like 97. So I was like a senior in high school, I think. And yeah, I mean, I remember the DVDs coming in and, what's this new thing? Standard definition. We didn't really learn about what that was until later. Oh, it's only standard definition. Wait until you get to high definition. It's going to look so much better. Yeah, I think one of my first DVDs was possibly Austin Powers, and then I just slowly grew the collection.
I don't know. You grew, so if you grew the collection, would you watch a movie multiple times, or would you watch it once and put it back on the shelf?
Oh, that's the thing, right? The whole goal is to watch it whenever you want. And do I ever watch my DVDs or Blu-rays? Almost never.
Yeah.
I know, right? That's like, why are they just sitting there taking up space?
The greatest way to like, for a company to sell something for $20. It's amazing.
I mean, there have definitely been those that have gotten many viewings. Like when I first got the Lord of the Rings extended edition with all of the commentaries and everything, I watched all that stuff. And then, of course, I upgraded to the Blu-ray, and I think we've put on the Blu-ray a few times. But yeah, like most of them, they're just sitting there just in case, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Streaming, I mean, now that we have streaming,
Okay, but this is a thing though. Like, and I think you might appreciate this, like other, because I feel like people who are 10 years younger than me,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh, well, interruptions just happen on streaming. That's just how it goes sometimes. Like, I hate that. I can't stand when the streaming is messed up. Like
Yeah.
on a DVD, it never stops. It's consistent. It just goes and it never gets a hiccup. And so that's one thing that I have trouble accepting is when streaming is, or when I'm watching a movie and there's like the resolution goes away,
Right.
or the you have to reset the Wi-Fi or something like that.
Some bullshit always happens. And it's super frustrating. You're right. And that's the thing. It's like, oh, well, if I had the physical thing, I could just put it in and it would play perfectly fine and there would be none of these problems. So yeah, like there's definitely pros and cons with the streaming stuff. But you don't have to rewind them like we did with VHS.
Absolutely. No. This is two men closest to 43 that they've ever been in their lives talking about.
Yep. we get each other.
Yeah, get each other for sure.
And both from the Midwest.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, DVDs. I think we talked about DVDs plenty. Okay, you may not know this. Now we have to make a sound effect to designate that the first word is done, and then we're moving on to the second one. Off the top of your head, what's a sound effect that you could make with your mouth or something? That's a good, like a swish kind of?
Like a swish kind of.
Yeah, all right, cool. So you just made the sound effect, and then I'll do the next one. We'll just go back and forth. So the next word is DVM, all caps. This is an abbreviation for Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, or veterinary, if you want to say all of the letters in that word. I mean, I take my cats to a vet, and so I assume that my vet has a DVM, but I have no clue.
You would hope.
Yeah.
I mean, for your cat's sake.
You got anything for Doctor of Veterinary Medicine?
No, the only thing I'm wondering is, like, these seem like acronyms.
Yeah, I mean, it's the abbreviation. So, like, you know, if somebody's saying, oh, I went and got my Doctor of Veterinary Medicine degree, they're not going to say the whole thing. They're just going to probably say DVM, I guess.
And that's a word in the dictionary.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
And they usually come in chunks because it's like, so like D vowel, if there's a D and then a vowel, and then once you finish that vowel, then you get to a bunch of consonants. There's going to be a whole bunch of these abbreviations. And we'll have some more of these later in this episode.
Cool.
Okay. The next word is Dvorak. And I always heard it pronounced Dvorak with like a GJ sound in the middle, but I think that might be the more the more non-English way to pronounce it. It is spelled capital Dvorak, and it is a noun from 1983. Have you ever heard of this?
No, it makes me think of Antonin Dvorak, though, who's a classical composer.
Right. Could be maybe family related, but not really. This is a typing keyboard with frequently used letters placed centrally, and it says compared to QWERTY, QWERTY, which is the standard keyboard that we all are used to. And I actually do know a bit about this because my friend back in the day, he was a coder, and he told me about this type of keyboard that was designed specifically to be the fastest possible way to type on a keyboard. But because the QWERTY keyboard had been the standard for all these decades, nobody picked up this Dvorak or Dvorak keyboard. And so I actually did start to learn it. I got one of these keyboard typing things, and you can buy keyboards, or you can move your keys around to be in this proper way. But all of the vowels are on one hand, like A, E, I, O, U are under one hand, and then the other most commonly used letters are on the other hand. And so then it's designed for the most commonly used letters are closest to where the fingers go. And so there's a lot of just back and forth between your letters. And you could type, I mean, once you get used to it, you can type super, super fast. But I never kept up with it.
You don't still use it?
No. I forgot. I stopped using it years ago. But what's interesting is that the QWERTY keyboard, when they had the typewriters, people were typing so fast that the keys would get stuck together and they'd have to like undo them. So QWERTY was actually designed to be the slowest possible way that somebody could type. And, you know, now people can type super fast on it because that's all we know. But Dvorak is supposed to be the fastest way and nobody uses it. It's so weird.
That's very weird. I'd like to try it just to see how crazy it would be.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely takes some getting used to because it's a completely different rearrangement of your letters. Yeah, I'll put a link in the show notes for that one. But I think more people should be using it because then we can type faster because that's what we all want in life is to type faster.
Keyboard manufacturers are going to go crazy.
Right. Oh, damn it. Spencer told us to use Dvorak. Now we have to make all these Dvorak keyboards. This is from August Dvorak, who is an American or was an American educator who died in 1975. Whether or not they're related to the classical composer, I have no idea, but I might have to look that up too.
I don't think so. I don't know. I think Dvorak is maybe spelled differently.
Could it be?
It might be DEV. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I'll put it in the show notes, and because right now I'm not going to do some research now, but you can because you don't have a book in front of you. Let's see. Oh, it is sound effect time. The next word is DVR, all caps. It's an abbreviation for digital video recorder. And we don't have the year here, but I assume back in the DI section, it probably said the year. This also changed the world. Before streaming, did you have like a TiVo or anything like that?
Nope. I didn't have cable. We didn't have, again, if it wasn't classical music on the radio, wasn't happening in our house.
I think that's a really important way to grow up though, because you get the basics, right, of the things that most of us don't get, and then you can join the rest of us.
You're very kind, Spencer. Appreciate that.
Next is DW, all caps, abbreviation for 1, dead weight, 2, delayed weather, 3, distilled water, or 4, dust wrapper. So you really need to know the context because those are all pretty different.
Yeah, there's also a drum company called Drum Workshop.
They also go to DW?
Yep.
Delayed weather, distilled water.
Yeah, interesting. Or the Dead Weather, Jack White's band.
Oh, I'm not as up on my music as most people are. That's another one of his bands. How many bands does he have?
Oh God, I don't know.
Wait, did you say Jack Black or Jack White?
Jack White.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, White Stripes, Raconteurs, Dead Weather. Those are the ones that I really know, and then I know that he has been doing a ton of solo stuff.
Yeah.
I just watched a video of him from last year, I guess, where everything is blue, including his hair.
Huh.
That threw me for a loop. I've only seen him in like black, white, and red.
Right. Why? Where did this blue come from? And do you know if it was a color correction thing afterwards, or was it all like practical?
Oh no, like his hair is dyed blue.
That's awesome. I'll have to
It's
look
incredible. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, I've heard of the White Stripes and the Raconteurs, I think, but yeah, the other one I didn't know of.
The Dead Weather. Oh God, I think her name's Alison Mosshart. She's from The Kills, I think. Wow, if I'm saying incorrect stuff about music, memorialized in time, people.
There we go. It sounds right to me.
Yeah, but they're a great band. They're really cool.
Nice. Music has been oddly an area that I'm lacking in. I'm like I know the bands that I grew up with, like Weird Al. They might be giants, but I never I have a lot of musical education I need to work on.
There's so many bands, man. It's out there.
I work with some guys who are like 10, 15 years younger than me, and they like start listing the bands that they go see live, and I'm like, you're just making this up. None of that could be real.
Yep. These are bands of your imagination.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are now to the section is the reason why Christophe is here, and he's going to educate us on everything that we need to know about this whole thing. I'm kidding. I'm not putting that much pressure on you. Got to make the sound effect. Here we go with the first form of the word dwarf, D-W-A-R-F, and there are 3 forms, so, we're going to get some different information in all of these. I guess before we get into it, is there anything that you want to say just sort of from like a high level or anything?
Great pun, by the way.
But I didn't even, actually, okay, no. Wait, now that you mention that, that's actually one of the questions that I had for you was, I guess, we see in media, TV shows and TV shows and movies, we see people in a certain situation. It could be with anybody who's different than them or whatever, and they start stumbling over their words, or they'll replace a word, or they'll throw in words that they didn't even mean to say in the first place. And obviously, you probably deal with stuff like that with the word short, for instance. So does it bother you if somebody starts to change their language to not make you uncomfortable or something?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. I think, not saying short changed, or, you get the short end of the stick, or that's a tall order or something. Listen, like, society is so ingrained in describing things by size.
Right.
So many of my friends will say, "Oh, I just met this new person. They're 6 feet tall." It's the first thing out of the mouth, is like, and it's just, but then when they describe me, they're like, "Oh, I met Christophe.
He's Polish."
There you go. He's bald. In fact, I'm like making a website, and that's like one of the that's like the about me section is just bald guy.
That's awesome.
I think we have this obsession, right? And it really it's ingrained and it seeps into everything. And I can't be mad my whole life, man. Like, if there's intent behind it, if you're, just, I'm still a person. You know what I mean? I think there's this unnecessary micromanaging that happens, and it doesn't need to happen. I think there needs to be more acceptance for people and difference. And I think when that happens, you're going to choose the language that is appropriate for whoever you're talking with.
Yeah, well said. And as I have definitely seen doing this podcast, language especially evolves, it changes. It's slow, very slow, but it does change. And, with gender issues, that's been a huge thing that we've been seeing. The language around that has been slowly evolving. So yeah, it's a process. So back to my question, is there anything else that you want to start us off with, I guess?
I guess one thing I'll say is dwarf seems like a very antiquated word to me. Mm-hmm. When I was seeing my doctor and, 40 years ago when I started seeing my doctor, I don't really recall them tossing around the word dwarf all the time. I remember little person, they did say dwarf now and then and dwarfism a lot, but it was like dwarfism and little person. So dwarf to me, and a lot of folks that I meet, they're like, "Is dwarf, that's offensive, right?" And I'm like, no, it's not offensive. I think it's offensive to not include somebody's name, or I need to say this, like the focusing on identity-based descriptions of people, like a person before a descriptor of whatever they look like. But dwarf to me always felt like this word that I just never really used it. I always used little person, and now I do use it almost interchangeably, but it just, to me, it seems like a more antiquated word, I guess.
Yeah, and I knew that little person was a little bit more of the accepted term. I'm putting in quotes because everybody's going to use what they're comfortable with. Well, the people in the world are going to use what they're comfortable with. The people outside of that world should not. Anyway, you get it.
People are going to use what they're comfortable with. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great way to say it.
But I guess I didn't realize that the term little person had been kind of the accepted term 40 years ago. That's longer ago than I would have expected, actually.
I was 3, so I don't know that I absolutely know that's what it was, but that's just what I remember from my world.
Yeah. And that's good. It's again, evolution, language evolves. So it's good that we're getting these better terms now. Throughout the, how many ever years, there is another word that is absolutely offensive, which I won't even say, but I think what you said has really helped or will help a lot of people to say the word dwarf is not offensive, but saying little person or little people is probably better, or even better yet, ask the person if you're talking to somebody, what do you prefer?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think all introductions are relatively awful, and awkward and weird, and a cold introduction. But I think it's also better to come from a place of knowing someone's name and respecting their identity. And it will be interesting when and I'd be happy to come back on when you do get to the M's and you get to midge and midget, because, I was in a documentary about surfing and my life and dwarfism, and the producer used a clip where I read the definition of midge out of the dictionary, and midge is the definition of a sand flea.
What?
So essentially, midget was used a lot in the circus days, and to as a way to degrade people, and it comes from the descriptor for a sand flea.
That is literally where it comes from.
As much as I know, as far as I can tell, it's in the dictionary, which sorry to spoiler alert people. When did the M's come out?
I guess we can just stop listening now. Oh, many years from now. That's fascinating. Yeah. I never even really thought about that. And I have to add an addendum to what I said. Talk to the person that you're talking with and ask them what term that they prefer. Or also, it's not why even bring it up? Like you said, it's just about the person. Have it be them instead of this thing that physically describes them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Well, the word we have to talk about it. The plural forms are either dwarfs or dwarves with an F or a V, and it is a noun from before the 12th century. It's an old word. Number 1A, a person of unusually small stature, especially one whose bodily proportions are abnormal. Take normal and abnormal with a grain of salt there. 1B, an insignificant person, as in a literary dwarf. Now that one is a little confusing. What a person, okay, so in this case, obviously we're not talking about physical stature here. We're talking about maybe somebody who doesn't know literature. And is that why they'd be a literary dwarf? Have you ever heard anything like that?
A literary dwarf. I've never heard a literary dwarf. I'm thinking, my mind goes to insignificance in disability. Thinking about how people who are disabled might not contribute to society in the way that average height people or able-bodied people are perceived to contribute to society. Perceived, right?
Right.
Using the word perceived here. And also that people, disabled people or people with these differences might require more aid and help in order to function and navigate society. When I see a literary dwarf, when that's calling them an insignificant person, I look at insignificance as, not contributing, not being able to contribute, not being seen, That's my interpretation, I guess.
Right. And
you should correct me if because I don't know the vibe of this dictionary, so I don't know like exactly what those words necessarily mean in the context of the this work, but that's how Christophe perceives it in this moment.
Right. And I don't really think I can add much more. I mean, I guess the only thing that I'm gathering is the word insignificant is so difficult here, especially because this is coming right after that first definition, because I don't think that the book is saying anything about what we're used to the word dwarf meaning, somebody who is physically smaller than somebody else, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think it's a more kind of metaphorical idea of insignificant, a not physical thing in this context. Honestly, I have not heard this used in this way, so I am super confused.
Yeah. It's kind of like this definition is starting out pretty dreadful, actually. Like,
No,
I mean,
yeah.
in every single phrase, there's verbiage that is not helpful to us.
Yeah. And I guess I feel like this second definition, at least the way that I'm interpreting it, needs to be sort of separated from the first definition, because I think if it were talking about somebody who is small, then it would have mentioned it there, but it is still under the 1B, it's 1A, 1B, so I don't know what they're trying to say here, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, before 12th, it seems like they just copy and pasted the definition from before 12th century.
Yeah, they took that book and they're like, yeah, let's just throw it in again.
Just Command C, Command V.
Yeah. Well, that one might be a little problematic. And for 1A, that one, was there anything specific that also was sort of problematic to you?
I guess abnormal seems like a harsh choice of a word, but I guess, it's a dictionary. So, I guess this is like a clinical, right? Like this is just like a clinical way of describing things. But also in the same way that it's a clinical way of describing things, a lot of people, if they're going home and saying, oh, what's a dwarf? And they go and open this up. It's like, there's no humanized element to this. Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I guess maybe there's a better way to say it, at least from the standpoint of someone who's trying to humanize this community, and help get us to a point of acceptance and parity. I think, I wish it was written differently.
Yeah, I feel that. And I will say this book is, I bought it right when I started the podcast, but I later realized that the copyright was a little bit older than I had realized. And so it's not quite up to date. So I'm wondering if in a more recent version, which they don't print very often, maybe it has changed a bit.
Yeah, maybe.
With all that being said, I will absolutely be putting some links in the show notes for more accurate descriptions of things like this. And if you have any specific links or anything that you want me to share, I will do that. Cool. That being said, since we are talking about this part very specifically, I think I remember hearing on your podcast, I think you said that there are 200 to 300 different kinds of dwarfism.
Yeah, I believe so. I don't, I haven't really been active in finding that out, but that's when you go on the internet, that's what it tells you. And also too, I think just in talking with my friends and the folks that I've interviewed, I've had 3 reconstructive surgeries in my life. I know other people who've had surgeries into the double digits for their it's called skeletal dysplasia. And I think that's the true determinant of whether you are a little person or not. It's not, are you 4'10" and under? It's do you have skeletal dysplasia that affects your bone structure? And other folks that I know, friends of mine that have achondroplasia, who are 4 foot tall. I'm 4'4". They're a little bit shorter than me. They have not had any surgeries to correct any skeletal dysplasia in their life. And so it's such a personal and intimate thing, and so to say that it really kind of highlights, in my opinion, in a microcosm, that each individual is their own individual, even within the containers. You can't necessarily say this is absolutely this. I've had people look at me and say, you have the attributes of cartilage hair hypoplasia, which is the dwarfism that I have, it's a very rare form. But these friends, these people will say, but you're flipping me out because these other attributes about you do not look like cartilage hair hypoplasia. So and they know they've been exposed to more people and more different types of dwarfism than I have, not doctors, just friends, people that live with dwarfism in the community. So I don't know. I that's what they say, that there are 2 to 3, maybe 400. I don't know, but it's such a mixed bag. I'm a broken record about that, because I think it just really is. It's such a unique and interesting experience.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of those different kinds are, and maybe I should have saved this for the actual word dwarfism, but that's okay. It's all the same thing. I'm sure a lot of those are sort of like subversions, slight variants of one to another. So there's maybe not much of a difference, but they're very similar and related.
Sure.
And just sort of, since we're talking about this, off the top of your head, do you know maybe like what are the sort of 2 or 3 most common types that like somebody like me might be a little bit more aware of?
Achondroplasia is the most common type of dwarfism. That's the type that Peter Dinklage has. There's I don't know the next most common one. Mine is called cartilage hypoplasia. There's pseudo, which is a little bit, I think those exhibit more taller traits. That's kind of off the top. I think I'm blanking right now.
That's all right. I put you on the spot. But I know that there are different physical features that sort of come with those different kinds. Are you able to sort of give a quick description of that if you feel? Sure,
yeah. So achondroplasia, generally, again, very, very specific amongst the individuals who have it. But generally, there's a more pronounced forehead and brow, shorter limbs, more average torso, and you got a little bit of a dwarf booty too.
Everybody loves the dwarf booty.
I mean, what's not to love? And then for me, cartilage hair hypoplasia, it's in the name, right? So my cartilage supposedly is supposed to be less sturdy, I guess, or break down more easily. I don't have pain, so go figure. But I do hardly have any quality hair on my body except for my beard. Like I shave my head because my hair is so fine, and on my arms and legs I hardly have any hair at all. It's just like these annoying little, I mean, they're cute and all, but whatever. But like, these like almost insignificant hairs that pop up. However, I will say that I do have the softest and fullest beard that anyone will ever feel. I will make that claim.
You gotta take the wins, I guess. Yeah, like I feel like my beard is a little patchy. It's not a very full beard like yours is. I do have a nice head of hair, so
you have a beautiful head of hair.
You put you and me together, and we got just all the head hair is just wonderful.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. Yeah,
I never thought that hair would be a part of that.
So apparently, I don't. Again, like this is all speculation. I don't know this isn't based in anything. It's just thought. But my grandparents lived in Pennsylvania, or from Pennsylvania. They moved to Pennsylvania. And there is a higher rate of cartilage hair hypoplasia in the Amish community.
Ah.
And so I'm wondering if there's like a little weaving of dwarfism that came from my folks in Pennsylvania, or it could be
Interesting.
Poland. Who knows, man? I have no
Yeah.
idea. I haven't done 23andMe yet, but I'm getting closer and closer to thinking I should do it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so you described a couple of those, and then just because it's on my mind, I know that there's another form, and I would never be able to tell you the name because I don't know, but I believe that there's another form where it's very the proportions are very similar to a quote unquote normal sized person, average height person, but just shrunken down.
Primordial, maybe?
Maybe, yeah, I don't know.
I think it might be primordial. Yeah. The tiniest dwarves have been primordial dwarves. I worked with a woman who was a primordial dwarf. She was like 39 inches tall, I think, and 39 pounds. And her proportions were very similar to an average height person. It's just, she was very small.
It's so fascinating what
So fascinating.
the genes and DNA can do.
Mixed bag. That's all
yeah,
I can
right.
say. Mixed bag.
It blows my mind.
You never know what, I mean, like I'm so fortunate. I've lived a life, an active life. I, can get up and move around and be active, and I don't have the pain. It's like, I could also just tomorrow, if my insurance company is listening, I'm fine. I'm actually doing great. You should still keep my plan.
I think I'm probably in more pain than you are.
It very well could be. I don't know what happened. I'm very lucky. It's a crapshoot.
It is.
It
really
really is. It's such a crapshoot.
All right. Well, we will find out what other things the dictionary has to say about this word dwarf. Some, we're getting into other areas here. Number 2, an animal or plant much below normal size. So, we see like, I don't know, dwarf donkeys, dwarf,
Bunnies.
Bunnies? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
probably any type of animal, there might be a dwarf version of it.
Okay, so coming from the number 1 definition and the number 2, I just feel like number 2 is written so much more respectfully than the first one.
Oh, the animal or plant one?
Yeah, I just feel like much below normal size. Like, you don't use unusual, you don't use abnormal, and you don't use insignificant. Like, I just think the care that was written for the animals and the plants is so much heightened on the second definition.
Yeah. And actually, when you were saying that before, I was thinking, well, why couldn't we just have written this in a much simpler way? Just something smaller than the other thing, or, in a really concise way. You're absolutely right. It's very to the point. There's none of these sort of judgmental words.
Very judgmental.
Yeah.
Yes.
The dictionary can get pretty judgy sometimes. It's a bit of a
I
diva.
feel like the author had a vendetta. Like, maybe his heart was broken by a little person at some point.
Maybe. If you read the dictionary like I am, you'll find a lot of these problem areas.
Wow.
Let's see. Number 3, a small, legendary man-like being who is usually misshapen and ugly and skilled as a craftsman.
Okay,
So-
we're back.
Yeah,
We're back.
right. Well, and of course, we're talking about the fantastical mythical creatures like in Lord of the Rings. But at least they're skilled as craftsmen.
Ugh.
Yeah, What?
We'll still make your stuff. Just don't look at us.
Yeah. Well, and this perfectly ties into what you were talking about before, how this is how, in your acting roles, you're picked to play all these different types of smaller people, creatures, whatever they are, and I don't really know where I'm going with that, but Lord of the Rings is the first example I can think of where we have dwarfs.
This is why the narrative needs to be changed.
Yeah.
I think if you're pulling your definition from a Disney movie, and putting it into the dictionary. The script needs to be flipped. This is not good representation for us. Yeah, I mean, like, you can tell. Number 1, not nice. Number 2, we love plants and animals. Great. Number 3, we're misshapen and ugly.
Yeah. And I guess, not that I'm going to defend the dictionary, but I guess they try to put everything they possibly can in here. And so if
Sure.
there are these any sorts of non-human things from fantasies, stories, whatever it is, they're going to put it in here. And unfortunately, this just happens to be one that comes off as incredibly negative.
Yep. So a friend of mine, Katrina Kemp, told me a story about how dwarves in ancient Egypt were seen as royalty. They were among the royalty in that time period. Like, she told me this story and I forget a ton of things.
It's like the 2,000 or 3,000 years ago.
Yeah. In ancient times, dwarves were seen as not jesters and not, folks that would that were lesser than. They were lifted up. And so I think, we haven't read all the definitions, but that's not where I feel like this is focusing in their depiction of us.
Yeah, it would be nice to see something like that in here too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, number 4, completely different topic, although obviously still related. It is a star like the sun, of ordinary or low luminosity and relatively small mass and size. So, there's dwarf stars and giant stars and red ones and brown ones and white ones, and, they're just like humans. That's what I've always said. Stars are just like humans. Although some of those colors should not be said either. We just watched, what did we watch? Oh, have you ever seen Citizen Ruth?
No.
It's Laura Dern in, I think it's from like 96. Anyway, she gets into a very, very religious household, and they start singing sort of like a hymn song, and they're using words like red and yellow to describe other people, and we were like, "Ooh, that's real problematic."
Yeah.
Okay. Dwarfish is an adjective, dwarfishly is an adverb, dwarfishness is a noun, dwarf-like is an adjective, and dwarfness is a noun. I always get hung up on the words that end in ness, like,
yeah,
how much dwarfness do you have? Is that how you would use that in a sentence? I don't know. I always am like, how do you even use that?
Or she's exhibiting a lot of dwarfness.
I guess, but like, and what does that even mean? I don't know.
I mean, I guess she's
insignificant.
She's right. Yeah, she's exhibiting a lot of insignificance and misshapenness.
Yeah, and this is exactly why I wanted to have not me only on this episode, because I knew that I was not going to do a good job talking about this.
No, you're doing a great job. I think I agree, man. I or dwarfishness.
Yeah, I mean,
I've never used these words.
No. These are just, they exist, so they got to put it in there. I
wonder if anyone would ever say these, or if they might be written in a book. Like, they might be some sort of, adjective or, something that's used in a book per se.
Yeah, they were probably used at one point. Bless you.
Excuse me.
They were probably used at one point, and then, people just don't use it anymore.
Yeah, I guess it has. If it was written somewhere, it has to be in the dictionary.
The etymology says this is from the Middle English words dwerg or dwarf, from Old English dwarg or dwar. These are spelled weird. Akin to the Old High German word twerg with a T, which means dwarf. So it's, there wasn't much of an evolution there.
Yeah.
When I was little, my sister used to make fun of me because when I would try to say the name of the movie, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, I always said, I was probably like 5, I don't know. I would say Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, like DORF, and she always made fun of me for that. And, rightfully so, I was saying the word wrong.
Yeah. Well, there's also that, I mean, you remember this from working at Blockbuster, but do you remember Dorf on Golf?
Yes. As soon as I said that out loud, I was like, wait a minute, wasn't there this character who was teaching golf or something? He was a guy on his knees?
His guy on his knees. I mean, I thought it was hilarious at the time, but I never associated myself with, like, I thought Dorf was just so funny.
Mm-hmm.
And now I look at it and I'm like, damn, that was so offensive.
Right?
It's so supremely offensive. And I didn't know what any of the jokes meant. I just, I saw this guy being super ridiculous on his knees, and I didn't associate myself with this guy.
Right.
I didn't think like, oh, I'm going to grow up and be as tall as he is. I never thought that. But now when you look back and you're like, oh, geez, because I don't know, maybe it was, I've tried to do a bunch of research, and I've looked up Dorf on Golf and watched a little bit of it, and it's just really, it's so terrible.
I'd be so afraid to watch it now. And I just now realizing that his name must have been a play on the word, because he was making himself short.
Sure.
And I never even thought about that.
And I think it's also, a play on the way that you said it as a 5-year-old, not to put you on the spot, but I think like that's like children, who don't know, they don't know how to pronounce the words that they don't necessarily know or don't say all the time. So it makes sense. It's I guess maybe a way to infantilize a little bit, and in like in a weird way. Also about the because you just said, oh, when I was little, and about the size comments. One thing that was eye-opening to me, I'm connected with about 20 moms of little people that all have cartilage hair hypoplasia like I do. And, their children are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's such an amazing experience to talk to these moms who have created their own community among themselves, of support. But when I've been on calls with them or been on Zooms with them, it's so interesting because they're teaching their children, because maybe their child with dwarfism has a brother or sister, and they're teaching their children to speak not in terms of size.
Mm-hmm.
So like, instead of saying when I was little, they teach them to say when I was younger.
Yeah.
And because that, and this is just particular to everyone's family and situation. And, I still say that, like when I was little or something like that. But, it's just interesting that talking about language, these folks are really taking it upon themselves to try and change the narrative and have thoughtful impact of what the words are meaning, in their families and communities.
Yeah, and that's so huge. And unfortunately, that's probably something that, at least for a while, is going to be kind of just in that community and not get spread out into the rest of us, as it should. It should spread to the rest of us. Again, I brought up gender before. That's another thing that, like, hey, let's start our kids young using different sorts of words to talk about boy, girl, whatever you want to say. And I have a niece who's 13, and I have friends and family who have young kids, and like they all see this world in a totally different way. Granted, they're in their own little world because they live in a city, for instance, and in more rural areas it's going to be different. But yeah, it's really nice to see slowly the language is evolving.
And I can be taught. I need to be taught just as much as anyone else. I remember 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I was on a Zoom call with a fellow podcaster, and we were just talking about things, and I said, oh yeah, I had a date with this girl the other night. And she's like, you didn't have a date with a girl. You had a date with a woman. And I was like, you're right. I had a date with a woman. Why did I say girl? And now when I watch movies and when I watch and I hear conversations of folks that don't necessarily put the weight on, whether they want to call a girl an actual woman when she is a woman, I'm so conscious of that now. Like it's disrespectful to call a woman, the name of a child. Like that's
Right.
not okay. And if she's of age to be a woman, she's a woman, or she can be a young woman. But like that's disrespect, and that landed with me, and I think about that now before I open my mouth and before I say, oh yeah, just I met this girl.
Right.
I didn't meet a 10-year-old. I met a 40-year-old. You know what I mean? Like it's,
Yeah.
so I think, when you put it in the context of humanness, I think it's important to consider that and make the change.
Yeah. We're all learning. We're all messed up.
We're all learning. We're all messed up. Yeah,
trying to do
for
our
sure.
best. And I appreciate when we do actually make changes. I know I'm trying to learn and change all the time.
Yeah.
Let's see. We've got more to say, but first we got to move on to the next word. I think it's your sound effect time. Maybe. Doesn't matter. We'll just make it. This is the second form of dwarf, and this one is the transitive verb. Oh, sorry. It's a verb, just a verb, from circa 1626. We are starting with transitive. Okay, number one. To restrict the growth of, and the synonym here is stunt. And I feel like I've always heard people will say like coffee will stunt your growth. I don't know if it's true, but I feel like I've heard that. I don't think I've ever heard the word dwarf used in that context though.
I've never heard it used in that context that I know of. That will dwarf your growth.
Yeah, yeah.
Coffee will dwarf your growth. Yeah, never heard that.
Never heard it either. Must have been used somewhere in probably 1626.
Antiquated.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Number two, to cause to appear smaller or to seem inferior, as in, has dwarfed the achievements of her predecessors. Oh, she did such a good job. She has so many more achievements than everybody else. She's broken all of the records, and all of her competitors' predecessors' achievements are just so small compared to her, I guess.
Yeah. I can see that being used more than the first one.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the intransitive definition is to just become smaller, is to just the verb, the action of dwarf. Now, it doesn't say it here, but I assume, would you say the word dwarfing with an ing? I mean, I don't think I've ever heard that word used, but I guess in this context, you could maybe say that word.
I don't know, but this just popped into my head that I want to write the script for Honey, I Dwarfed the Kids.
Yes. What's the...
Or like...
Go for it.
No.
I want to make that movie. Let's make that movie.
Let's write the... Yeah.
I feel like I'm having movie ideas every day, and I'm sure none of them will ever get made.
You must be, man. Honey, I dwarfed the accomplishments of her predecessors.
It just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
Maybe
if anybody wants a writing partner, let me know.
Yeah. I think I could use one. Maybe like a Saturday Night Live sketch or something.
Oh, perfect. Yes.
Let's see. Okay. Whew. The third form of dwarf is an adjective from 1597. This one is specifically talking about a plant, and it is low growing in habitat, as in dwarfer forms of citrus. So dwarfer, that's the adjective. So these are things that I guess just grow low to the ground, which is why they are dwarf. I don't know. I mean, I don't know plants, so I am not familiar with this one at all.
Yep. Same.
Yeah.
We're not going quite back to the 12th century, but we're still going back in time.
Yes, for sure. Okay, it is your turn for the sound effect. The next word is dwarfism, and it is a noun from 1865. Real short definition, it's just the condition of stunted growth. What do you have to say about that?
It's the at least we got 5 words.
Yeah.
I just think there's so much more that can be put down there. The condition of stunted growth. Yeah, to the point. But also, I think, why not say there's also hundreds of different types of dwarfism? Dwarfism can manifest. I guess it's not an encyclopedia, so maybe I'm
right.
requesting more than what they're, the rules of the dictionary. But yeah, I mean, that's it. It's the condition that's a part of it. But I also too, as I mentioned before, just because you're 4'10" doesn't mean you have, or shorter than 4'10", that doesn't mean that you're a dwarf or have dwarfism. I think if you have skeletal dysplasia and you have skeletal deformities, that result in shorter stature.
Yeah.
To me, that's dwarfism, But I guess in this dictionary, we're talking about it, right? If a plant is short, it's a dwarfed plant.
Mm-hmm.
So in this might not fly in a medical dictionary, but I think it's more than that in a medical dictionary, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah, I think there's a whole lot more information to say for sure. You were mentioning that it's the skeletal dysplasia. So I've seen people who, for instance, have average height but have like very short arms, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, would they have a certain kind of dwarfism just of the arms? Would it be like specified to that specifically? I mean,
I don't know that I can comment on that because it's again, it's such a mixed bag that like some folks just have a limb difference of the arms.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything about that, and I don't claim to know anything about that, but I know I've met folks that have the rest of their body is average or able, whatever you want to call it, and then they have a limb difference on a specific limb.
Yeah.
To me, that isn't dwarfism, but I could definitely be proved wrong for sure. You
right.
Bring somebody, and so, to me, like dwarfism, the way that I understand it is that it's in your chromosomes, it's in your genes, so it changes the entire makeup of your body,
the whole thing, opposed to like just
thing.
one limb, say.
Which I think is a very interesting conversation, and I bring up a little bit of that on the podcast. Folks who there's this thing where folks will have limb lengthening operations.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're called. That's the name of the operation. Limb lengthening is actually more to straighten the limbs. The lengthening or heightening that people gain from those operations is a secondary result. People don't show up at the doctor's office and say, I want to be 8 inches taller. The doctor says, your bones need correction. Otherwise, you will have trouble with mobility later on. And they say, these are the options. And somebody says, okay, I want to try limb lengthening. And if that's the choice that's best for them, they choose that choice. And then as an additional benefit for them, you get, some people have gotten 10 inches of extra length.
That's huge.
The body's an amazing thing. It's so incredible. You're not done with dwarfism. Like your arms are still affected with dwarfism. Your toes are still affected with dwarfism. Your skull is still affected with dwarfism. So, I for people that have dwarfism specifically, as far as I know, it affects, your skeletal makeup.
Yeah, and maybe like one or maybe a few of those 200 to 400 types of dwarfism might be a very specific like dwarfism of an arm or a leg or something like that. But I totally agree with you. In my mind, I wouldn't necessarily say that they have dwarfism or they are a dwarf or a little person, because that's clearly a different thing.
Yeah.
And I
maybe I'm wrong. You know what I mean? Like maybe there's people out there where it's like, yeah, dwarfism, has only affected. I don't know.
And I apologize if I put you on the spot a little bit, but
no, I like it. I like I like this amount of pressure. This is a good amount of pressure, Spencer.
It's the right level. I won't go more than that.
It's okay. I'm good. No, this is
on that note. Do you have a general idea in your mind or things that you have heard of, like the statistics of sort of like how many people in the world, like a percentage of are affected by dwarfism?
I used to joke around with an ex that it was 70% of the population was affected with dwarfism.
70%?
It was a silly ongoing joke. No, I mean, I know that it's less than 1% of the population. It's a small number. I can't throw a number out. Maybe there's like 40,000 people living with dwarfism in the US.
I mean, less than 1% is
less than 1%.
Is good enough for me.
Yeah, it's less than, and that's taken from, if you go to the LPA, Little People of America website, it's listed. They have FAQs on there, and that's listed on there.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what those are the types of things that I want to put in the show notes, so people can sort of go, I have all these questions. Go there.
Yeah, lpa.org.
Perfect. Okay, let's see. Well, if you will indulge me, I do have a few other questions just because we're sort of in this section. I know this is a very long episode, but if you don't mind,
I'll
just keep on going. I just have a few. Well, first, we were talking about your podcast before, and I forgot to ask, what has, if you're aware, what has the reaction of your podcast been in the little person, the LP community?
It's had a good reaction so far as I can tell. No one has written a poor review of my podcast, which I greatly appreciate. I think people like to hear the stories, and I think now there's more pride in our community than maybe there ever has been. Mm-hmm. And I think that's good. I think people realize that we can take up space in this world, and we can have self-confidence, and we can be sexy and powerful and show vulnerability in ways and have conversations about dwarfism. All these things that I thought I could never do. I mean, even up until I was probably 30. Like it's been a long road, man. And I'm still working at it, but I never wanted to associate with other little people in my life. Like until I was 30, I knew one other little person, and I did not hang out with them, on a regular basis. And so I think, I don't know if I'm getting off of your question or not, but like, I think that it's just important to show that community and to and to have the conversations in my podcast. Is that what you asked me? What did you ask me, man?
It was just like about the reaction in the reaction. LP community, but I mean, I think you probably said what you were aware of. I mean, it's not like you're gonna know what they say. Are they talking about it at the meetings? I don't know.
So I will say that in my personal community, in my smaller reach of little people, when I made the trailer for my podcast, I did share it with another little person, and her reaction was, it was Allie, actually, she was one of my earlier guests, and her reaction was, why does everything that you're saying resonate with me? I've never been able to say these things, but I feel all these things. And that was the light bulb moment when it was like, oh, we're all closeted and like wearing masks and just trying to put out this persona of strength and we're, tough, or, we're average. We're as average as anybody else when we're not, it's like our acceptance or our difference needs to be accepted and for what it is. And so I think that's just really, really tough, I think, for a lot of folks. And so that's been a huge eye-opening benefit for me.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who has some sort of physical difference, whether they're as quote unquote simple as a black person living in a white community or a little person living in an average height community or anything that's physically different, you automatically are going to have, you're going to be dealing with stuff that the rest of us can't.
Yeah.
We'll never know.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
that affects you.
Yeah, it really does. And that's an interesting conversation too about the, do you try to walk a mile in someone's shoes or try to do that? Or do you just accept them for what the difference is? And for a long time, I was just saying, I don't need somebody to try to walk a mile. I just accept people's differences. And I've had I think it's an interesting conversation because in my head, it isn't totally resolved. Folks that I've talked to have said, no, like you should really try to experience things how people experience them. But I don't know exactly how that works.
Yeah, sometimes it's just, there might not be an answer to that. Yeah. Just because I'm curious, are there like a lot of very typical standard questions that you get, or maybe other people in the community get, that you're like I could answer these like 5 or 10 questions because every single time somebody's going to ask me these questions?
Yeah, the most common one is, what do we call you? And we've discussed that already. Like, calling out somebody by their name is the most important thing.
What do we call you? My name is Christophe, so you can call me that.
Yeah. Step up to the plate and have the awkward, moment, the awkward introduction. That's really the most common. I think I don't know what people necessarily wonder about, maybe they wonder like if it's okay to go up and talk to someone, which I understand. I mean, it's difficult, it's not easy to just hop in and cause what is I'm sure they're worried about what's the reason why I'm coming up to someone and saying hello.
Right.
You don't want to trivialize or make a big deal about it. A friend of mine actually saw another little person in the grocery store, and he's a dear friend that I see all the time, and he went up to them and was very open and accepting and wanted to just have a conversation with this person, and this person was like, please just let me go about my day. I just want to go do my stuff.
Right.
And my friend's like, no, like my buddy is Christophe and we're cool and stuff. And, it's just cool to see another little person, like all well-intentioned,
Right.
all it's just awkward, man. It's not easy, but I think, maybe one thing is, how do you want to be seen in the community? And I think that's another really personal conversation, because I think like that invokes like, do you want me to ask if you need help sometimes, or do you want me to ask if you're okay, or things like that, moments that might feel really awkward or kind of difficult to approach. So
yeah, it's like you said, going up to somebody, talking to them, any of those things, it's a very touchy situation. I mean, there are other similar things, like, if you're at a bar and you're trying to meet somebody that you're attracted to, like that could be a super hard thing. Like you don't know how they're going to react. And yeah.
But you can also just be forward. I went out to a party the other night, and a friend of mine called me the next day, and she said, "Oh, you actually made a really good impression on my friend. Can I give her your number?" And I was like, yes, that's, and I appreciate that. Like, if you have the confidence and the guts to do that and say that, I mean, that's attractive and that's super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Confidence is big. I think in your podcast, you had mentioned, step stools.
Yeah.
You always sort of have to have it around. And I don't remember if this was mentioned in the show, but it popped in my head. When you travel, do you actually travel with a step stool?
God, I want to, man. I'm using one right now. And when I go to a restaurant, I almost hate going to restaurants now because there's no place to put my feet. And honestly, that's maybe where I'm the most sore, is in my hips, because my feet just dangle. They've only just dangled when I sat in a seat. I try to put my foot up on I would love to take a step stool with me everywhere, and maybe I should, but I do get very creative about putting my feet up on the rungs of chairs or the rungs and tables, wherever I can, to get some support. Yeah.
I feel like I'm doing that anyway. I'm doing that on my desk right now because I just like to have my feet up anyway.
Yeah. Great question.
How frustrating is it to you when you go into a bathroom and somebody's using the urinal that is lower on the wall?
Yo, this is going to get very vulnerable. You didn't ask for this, but here we go.
I love it all.
Because personally, I will never use a urinal. Like, I don't know. Because I've only used a stall because, when I was with my dad and we would be driving from Detroit to Baltimore, my mom too. My mom drove as well. But whenever we were on the road, like, we'd stop on the turnpike, and those truck stops never had low urinals or anything. So I was always using the stall, since I was 3, 4, 5, my entire life. That's the one thing I cannot break. I cannot pee at a urinal no matter what. Like, sometimes even if I have the place to myself and the door is locked, like, I still have to go in the stall. I don't know. I sometimes, like, if there's the one that's like goes all the way to the floor, I'm like, I'm going to conquer this, and it works. And that's a wonderful day. But like, I got to use a stall.
That's fair. I mean, at the very least, if it's in one of the places where there's a bunch of them, I'm like, I don't want to be standing next to you. Like, for me, that's a big thing. At like Wrigley Field or something, they don't even have urinals. They just have a trough. And
right.
Like, that's my worst nightmare. I hate those things.
No, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's hilarious. Like, people who, if I'm waiting for a stall and there is a short urinal and sometimes they'll ask me and they'll be like, yo, you want to use that? And I'm like, no. They're like, are you sure? Like, I can't go and use that in front of you. I'm like, no, man, you're good.
Yeah.
Then I start screaming, and I'm like, shame that, no, I don't do that at all.
I can understand the confusion from the other person. Like, do you want the tall one? Why would you want? You're like, no, it's a stall. I'm waiting
such an
for
asshole.
No, that's great.
Yeah, I know, man. I wish I'm not the master of my domain in that scenario. I guess I wish I was.
Well, I do sometimes use those just because they're there, and I'm always like, oh, I'm super worried that somebody is going to come in. Could be a kid, anybody, and be like, no, that's mine. And I try to be conscious of that because I know not everybody is.
That's thoughtful. That's nice. But also, I mean, how long does it take to pee? Really? Like, you're there for like 40 seconds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not ruining it. I think that's like, if you were to push a guy out of the way, you know what I mean?
Then we're going to have some troubles.
Yeah. No, I think, it's not like a parking spot, or, you're blocking an entryway or something. Like, you're there for a minute,
Well, thank you for that. But although I'm sure that there are some people who are not, who feel a lot more strongly about the urinals, probably.
Absolutely. Like, I have no desire to go up there. So
yeah.
People are like, stand up for us, Christophe. Yeah.
Everybody's different. Christophe is a stall man. That's what you need to know.
I'm a stall man. That's right.
All right. Well, I guess we should probably finish up the rest of these words. We're only about halfway through. Let's get going. The next word. It is dwarf planet. 2 words. Noun from 1993, the same year that DVDs came into being. This is a celestial body that orbits the sun and has a spherical shape, but is too small to disturb other objects from its orbit. I guess, I don't know, like, would our planets close to the sun be considered dwarf planets? I'm not sure. Probably not. Maybe the closest one is. But yeah, they don't affect the gravity of everything else, so that's why
there's a lot more description in that. Than other words. I'm just pointing. I'm not going backwards at all, but I'm just going to say there's a lot of description in that one.
Yeah. I guess they had a lot to say.
They had a lot
unlike
more to
some
say.
other places.
Interesting though. I find celestial bodies like fascinating.
Yeah, what did I just see today? The James Webb Telescope measured the temperature on an exoplanet, like TRAPPIST-1b or something like that. I didn't realize that it could measure the temperature of a planet.
People on this planet are so smart. It's incredible.
It is. I will never understand how they do stuff like that.
Nope.
Sound effect, please. The next word is dweeb. We are getting into a whole new section. This is the first of the DWE words, and it's not going to last long. This is a silly word. It's a noun from 1964. It's slang, and it is an unattractive, insignificant, or inept person. Dweebish is an adjective, also slang, and dweeby is an adjective, also slang. And they say that the origin is unknown. I feel like we could probably take some guesses, but yeah, for a long time, I think this was a word that was not considered to be very nice, just like other words in our English language.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think it had some association with smoking doobies?
I mean,
1964.
Yeah. And I did actually just read the word doobie not that long ago, and I think it was in the 60s when that was created. Also, origin unknown. So maybe there's a dweeb doobie connection.
That's like the code word for it was devised when it was hot, when people were high. Origin unknown.
Yeah, wait, sorry. I think I missed part of what you said. The internet went out. What was that?
I said the origin unknown is maybe code for it came up with when someone was high.
Yep. Sorry. Yes, every single time we see origin unknown in this book, it's just because they were high. I could definitely see somebody being high coming up with the word dweeb.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, the dork nerd, I take that as a badge of honor for myself. I would call myself a dweeb, I guess. But also the definition, I don't know. I think that should evolve. I don't like that definition either.
Yeah, definitely.
Next word is dwell. We won't dwell on some of these things. We'll move forward. This one is a verb from the 13th century, and it looks to be just intransitive. Number 1, to remain for a long time. 2A, to live as a resident. Dwelling in your home. In a dwelling. Dwelling in a dwelling. 2B, the synonyms are exist and lie, L-I-E. 3A, to keep the attention directed, and this is used with the words on or upon, as in, tried not to dwell on my fears. I'm trying not to keep all of my attention on the fears. And if you have anything to jump in with, just interrupt me. I don't have a lot of stuff to say about some of these. So
no, I mean, this is just interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. 3B, to speak or write insistently, and this is used also with the words on or upon, as in reporters dwelling on the recent scandal. Oh, yeah, I think sometimes they should not be dwelling on certain things and move on to more important things.
Agreed.
I don't need to know about the couple that broke up in Hollywood.
Yeah. Exactly.
Dweller is a noun. This is from the Old English dwellon, which means to go astray or hinder. That's kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
That's totally opposite of what I would have thought.
Wow. Yeah.
To go astray, well, dwelling is usually like staying, remaining for a long time, living in one place, not going away. Fascinating. Also from the Old High German twellen, which means to tarry, Tarry.
Do you think it was used by people who were describing folks that left their community and they're dwelling somewhere else?
Maybe.
So maybe that's why they had opinions about whether they were astray or not astray.
Yeah, and then because they were described as dwelling or dwellers, then they called themselves that when they got to a place that they stayed, and then it changed into that.
Could be.
Yeah. It's very possible. I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting to see how things change like that.
Absolutely.
I think it's your sound effect time. Dwelling is next. Noun from the 14th century. A shelter, as a house, in which people live. They live in a dwelling.
Perfect.
That's it. That's it for that.
Nailed
and that's
it.
it for the DWE words. Now we have a few fun, weird, short little acronyms, mostly. Whew. The next one is DWI, and I think it's funny that the pronunciation actually gives you the whole pronunciation of how you're supposed to say those letters, DWI. Usually they don't for these. This is a noun from 1969, and the synonym is DUI, which must have aired not that long ago. DUI stands for driving under the influence, and DWI stands for driving while intoxicated. I wonder why we got two different phrases for that.
For the same thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Essentially the same thing.
Right. I guess all I'll say about that is please do not drink and drive because you don't want to get a DUI or a DWI.
Yeah, don't DWI so that you get a DUI.
Exactly. And also, I should add that it's not about getting the DWI or the DUI. It's that it's incredibly dangerous, and that could kill somebody. So please don't do that.
But I just used it in a wrong context because it's a noun. I said don't DWI.
Oh, which would be the verb.
Yeah, interesting.
So, yeah, I think...
don't drive intoxicated so you don't get a DWI.
Right. And are there do some states give you a DUI and some states give you a DWI?
Wow.
Or something? I don't know.
Who knows?
Nobody will know.
No one, unless, don't try and find out, people.
No, don't go state to state driving drunk.
Just research it online. It's fine.
Yeah, there's a reason we have Google.
Yeah. Are you ready? Oh,
Was it mine or is it yours?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I lose track every single time. Go for it. You can take it.
I'll do the next one. You already did it.
Okay. The next word is dwindle. Verb from 1596, starting with intransitive. To become steadily less, and the synonym is shrink. Like, I'm trying to think of a funny example, and I couldn't think of anything. Yeah, I don't know. Intransitive is to make steadily less. I was going to say, like, my hair is dwindling, but at this point, it's not. So I didn't even say it, but I did
Honey,
say it.
I dwindled the achievements of her predecessors.
Very good callback. Maybe we should use that word instead. The synonym is the word decrease. Let's see. Oh, I'm drinking so much water, it's dwindling away. This is probably from the word dwine, which means to waste away. From the Old English dwinon, which is akin to the Old Norse dvina, which means to pine away. Also from the Old Norse Deja, Deyja, and that means to die. So yeah, I mean, I guess when you die, you dwindle to your I don't know, something's done. You're dwindling away.
Dwindling to nothing. All right.
Yeah. Okay, sound effect, please. DWT is next. This is an abbreviation for 1, dead weight ton, and 2, pennyweight. It does not explain why DWT is an abbreviation for pennyweight.
Maybe somebody used the wrong character at some point and it was a PWT.
Yeah. I suspect Latin or French is involved in this one. Usually that's the case. DX is next, all caps, noun from circa 1924. The synonym is the word distance, and this is used of long-distance radio transmission. I think the X is probably the shortened version of transmission. Trans, I think, is often shortened to X. So that's my guess. Like distance transmission. Yeah.
Cool.
It's your turn. DXA, all caps. This is an abbreviation for dual energy X-ray absorptiometry. It's a fun word to say. I'm sure that I had trouble with this when I got to it back in the A's. Absorptiometry, whatever way you want to say it is fine.
Wow.
No clue what that is other than it has to do with X-rays.
Dual energy X-ray absorptiometry?
See, it's not that easy.
No, it's not that easy.
Not that you couldn't tell, but I forgot to mention we did DWIs, then we got to DX, and now we are on DY. This first one is an abbreviation for 1, delivery, 2, deputy, and 3, duty. Like the thing that you have to do, and not the thing you do in the toilet. DY. All right, it's your turn for a sound effect. DY again. This has a capital D. It is the symbol for dysprosium. Now, I have to imagine that's on the periodic table.
I would guess.
I never studied it, so I don't know most of them.
Dysprosium. Also, don't do that in the toilet.
Oh, no, we don't need any dysprosium in the toilet. Maybe I feel like I should. I don't know anything about these. Like I've heard of all these. There's like Einsteinium and Californium. I'm like, what are these things? These things on the periodic table. I don't know.
Are those the ones that are in the 90s and the 100s?
I think so. Yeah.
Where they're kind of just like making stuff up.
Right. I think they are actually created in a lab. Like, we made one of these and it exists, so we got to put it on there.
They're created elements. Yeah.
Yeah. This one I don't know about, but I've never heard of it. It's not like in the 20s or lowers with like gold and carbon and hydrogen and stuff.
Yep.
I know those guys. All right. We have one more word. It's a prefix, dy or dyo, and it just means 2, the number 2, as in the example, and I'm going to have to look ahead to get the pronunciation, diarchy. D-Y-A-R-C-H-Y, diarchy. So that's something with 2. We'll learn about that in the next episode. And that's if you see dy in front of something, it probably means to.
There you go.
That's all I got.
Yeah. Would you
yeah.
like make up some word? Can you just make up some words by saying dy and meaning that it's to?
I don't see why not. I mean,
Like
are they going to catch on?
Dynasty, like two nasties.
I love that one because you took an actual word and you flipped it. You changed it. A dynasty. Ooh, yeah. We got two nasties here. Oh, all right. Well, now that you've said that, I'm gonna have some fun in the next few episodes, coming up with what is this thing with two. Like, oh god, yeah,
God.
Interesting. All right. Well, this was a blast.
I had so much fun. This is the best time I've had with the dictionary for sure.
Mine too. There is one last thing we have to do. I'm going to quickly just reread the words that we had, and then you get to pick a word of the episode.
All right.
Any of them is fine. We had DVD, DVM, Dvorak, DVR, DW, dwarf, dwarfism, dwarf planet, dweeb, dwell, dwelling, DWI, dwindle, DWT, DX, DXA, dy, and die.
I'm going with DVD because we bonded over a lot of pop culture.
Oh, yes. Do you remember one of the first DVDs that you did end up getting?
Oh, I know you're going to ask this.
Yeah.
No, I don't, because my brain... I remember in college, I saw this movie called Time Code.
Yes.
Do you remember that movie?
Is that the one where it's in 4 quadrants?
Yep.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
I saw it at the film festival at East Lansing or Michigan State University Film Festival in probably 2000 or something. And I remember purchasing the DVD after that, and I thought it was the coolest movie I'd ever seen in my life. And I don't know, but it's 4 cameras in 4 different quadrants, and it appears that there are no cuts, but 3 of the cameras end up in the same room at the end of the film, and you never see any of the cameras.
You're breaking my brain. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember that specifically. I do remember that they were all part of the same story, and then they would like turn the volume down of one or 3 of them, and so you would focus on whichever one you were supposed to focus on, and they were all recording at the same time, and they were locked to the time code, which I think was running, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't remember if the time code was running or not. It could have been, but I also remember that there were 2 earthquakes.
Yes.
And they were synced. They were simulated earthquakes. I thought they were real at the time, but they were simulated earthquakes, and all the camera people had to shake, and the actors had to react to this earthquake that was happening. I just thought it was like such a producing probably nightmare, but also it was such a cool film when I saw it. That I still own that DVD. That was probably one of the first ones I really purchased.
That's awesome. One of just my favorite aspects of the DVD culture was the fact that we could get deleted scenes and special features and commentaries and all that stuff. As like, this is what, for like a kind of film nerd that I am, like, this is the stuff that I love. I love the behind the scenes. I love hearing the directors and the actors and the writers talk about the process and where they were and what they were doing, and the making of documentaries and all that stuff. That was like my favorite part about that.
Yeah,
and
that is
not having to rewind.
Wonderful. Yes, and not having to rewind.
Speaking of time code, there's another movie that we just watched recently. I think it's from maybe 5 years, 2018, 2015, something like that. It's called Victoria. Have you ever heard of this one?
I don't know.
It's from Germany, I think. You have got to watch this movie. I don't even want to say anything about it other than, I mean, I feel like I have to say it now. It's one shot. The entire movie is one shot. And it's really, really well done.
What a ball of stress, man.
Oh my God. Especially in this movie.
Really?
Holy crap.
Oh my gosh. Amazing. Cool.
Yeah. Let me know if you watch it. I'd be curious to hear what you think.
Victoria?
I think it's just called Victoria. Yeah, like it's her name,
Okay.
Victoria.
Yeah, love to check it out.
Yeah, cool.
I'll watch
Well,
the trailer when we get off of here.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Well, DVD is the word of the episode. And I just want to say yet again, please go check out Christophe's podcast, I'm Kind of a Big Deal. If you haven't watched Twin Peaks, well, you should probably start at the beginning, and then eventually you'll get to his scenes, which are some of the most fun in the whole thing.
Thank you so much, Spencer. Super fun, man, being on here.
And I hope you do release more of those podcast episodes, because you know, like you have so many people you can talk to, and they all have amazing stories, so they got to get out there.
I appreciate the encouragement, man. I that is my goal. I would love to start it up again.
It's all about the time, and I
All
feel
about
your
the time.
pain. All right. Well, this is the end of this episode. We're almost at the end of the D's. Like literally a four episodes from now, the D's will be done. So thank you for joining me here on this journey. And until next time, this is Spencer dispensing information. Goodbye.